Hey guys, today I want to talk about the word privilege. Now, if that word made you cringe, made you feel defensive, then this video is for you, assuming you are interested in understanding someone that maybe you don't agree with, because maybe you don't think you have privilege, but let me talk about it. Now, first off, I just want to start this off with, I think most people who are uncomfortable with the word privilege have been taught its wrong definition. A lot of people think privilege is something that makes you bad. People think it's something that makes you criminalized. That is not what it is. Privilege just means something that you don't experience because of something that you can't control. For example, white privilege does not mean that there's a thing that you can be like, all right, hi, can I go to this store? Can I trade in my white privilege for this? It means that you don't experience things. The common misconception is that privilege means you experience things other people don't. It's that you don't experience things. For example, if you have able-bodied privilege because you are not disabled, you don't experience certain things that disabled people do. You don't have to worry, is there an elevator in this building? Because you can walk up the stairs, for example, if you're not in a wheelchair. So I think it's important to first define privilege. Privilege is not a bad thing. Having privilege does not make you bad. Having privilege does not criminalize you. Having privilege does not make you any worse or bad of a person. It just is a fact. It means that you don't experience certain things other people do. I personally believe that privilege and acknowledging your privilege is something that overall makes you a happier person, because then you can identify the things you have to be grateful for and then use those things to realize other people don't have those to be grateful for, and then how can you uplift them? And I don't know about you, but that makes me happy. Let's first try to define privilege. Privilege, as I said, means something that you don't experience because of something that you can't control. A great example is white privilege. Now that is something that is, I believe, a very complex topic, and I think that's one of the only privileges people talk about. And when you're trying to explain privilege to someone, I think that let's talk about a more very easy to understand form of privilege. White privilege is very complex. There's many parts. There's statistics to it. Let's dumb it down. Let's talk about able-bodied privilege. So if you have a disabled person in a wheelchair and a person who can walk, all right? That person who can walk goes to a building. There's a big set of stairs. They can just walk up those stairs. When they're walking up the stairs, they might not realize that that is a privilege that disabled person in a wheelchair doesn't have. That disabled person in a wheelchair has to think about, okay, is there an elevator? Is there a different way for me to get in? Now, that person who can walk up the stairs, do they do anything wrong? No. Are they bad for having to be able to walk up the stairs? No. But let's say that person then realizes, oh, wow, after they walk upstairs, wow, that disabled person down there, they can't walk up there. Wow, I'm so grateful that I am able to walk up. And because I can walk up, let me see how I can help them get up. Oh, maybe I can contact the owner of the building and say, wow, you should really install an elevator, or you should install a ramp. That is a very simplified version. It is about being grateful for what you have and the privileges you have, and then using that to help other people. It is a very simple topic. It's very simple at its most basic core, but obviously it gets more complex. White privilege. There's so many layers of complexity to it, and I think it's very difficult for people to understand sometimes, and I think I understand why people struggle to understand it, because a lot of white people are like, I don't have privilege, I struggle with X, Y, and Z. The thing they're missing is it's not about what you struggle with, it's about what you don't struggle with. So if you're, let's say, a white person who is poor, you struggle to put food on the table, you have had lots of hardships in your life, that doesn't mean that you haven't had white privilege. And that doesn't mean that your white privilege takes away from that. You can have certain privileges and have not. Just because you have white privilege, that means that you don't struggle because of the color of your skin. It doesn't mean you don't have all these other struggles. I'll give you an example. I have white skin, therefore I benefit from white privilege. Me benefiting from white privilege doesn't mean I don't struggle. I do struggle. I lost my grandfather to COVID-19. That is something I've been struggling with for months. The fact that I'm white and don't experience certain things that black people and people of color experience does not mean that my struggles are any less valid, any less real. They just mean that my struggles are not because of the color of my skin. That's all it means. It doesn't mean there's any special things I get because I'm white. It doesn't mean that I can go to a store and trade in my white privilege for something. It just means that my struggles are real and valid, but they are not because of the color of my skin. Something here from the community that I mean a lot is, well, I'm Jewish, so I don't benefit from white privilege. Now, to that I say, I believe non-Jewish people benefit from not the privilege of not having to deal with anti-Semitism. Ashkenazi Jews are in an interesting position where we pass as white, many of us, but at the same time, we are technically not fully white, and we are Jewish, and we experience anti-Semitism. And I believe that people who aren't Jewish benefit from the privilege of not having to experience anti-Semitism. What does that mean? That means that they don't have to fear while they're in houses of worship in the same way we do. Obviously, there's other ways they can fear. Muslims in certain countries have to fear that. Christians at church sometimes have to fear that. But there's definitely a difference between Jews that have to experience that. Another thing, Non-Jews don't have to experience in the same way we do that the vast majority of Ashkenazi Jews have older people in their family or people in their ancestry who were murdered in the Holocaust. That is something they don't have to experience. Another thing they don't have to experience is being the scapegoat throughout history for all the world's problems. Now, does that mean that people who aren't Jewish problems aren't valid? No. That just means they have not had to experience those problems because of their religion, or those specific problems. They may have had to struggle with different problems because of their religion of Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, all of those things, but not the same as Jews. That doesn't mean they're bad, that doesn't mean they did anything wrong. It's just acknowledging the fact that they don't experience that because of them being Jewish. Now, white Jews still benefit from white privilege. We still don't get harmed by certain things that people of color do because of our color of our skin. The fact that we experience things that are hard because of being Jewish does not take away from the things that we don't experience. Again, it is all about what you don't experience, not what you do experience. Hope this video helps a little bit to kind of understand. I think it's all about just trying to understand people, have compassion, and be able to recognize what you have to be grateful for. For me, honestly, privilege is something that helps me appreciate what I have and then be able to uplift others with my position of privilege. Let's just list off a few. I have able-bodied privilege. I'm able to walk up a set of stairs. I do not have any disabilities. That is something I can be grateful for, and then think about, wow, one day if I own a company and own a store, let me make sure that it is accessible for people in wheelchairs. Another privilege I have, white privilege. I don't have the same fear of getting pulled over by a cop as a black man does. And again, that's a very complex topic that we can talk about another time. Another privilege I have is I grew up in comparison to the rest of the country, a relatively wealthy family. Therefore, I do not have to worry about putting food on. My parents don't have to worry about putting food on the table. We do not have to worry about access to healthcare. Because I don't have to worry about that, that doesn't mean I'm bad. I'm not bad because I'm white. Unfortunately, I think sometimes people weaponize the word privilege, which then makes people get defensive about it. Like, oh, I'm not privileged because I've been taught that privilege is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. As long as you acknowledge it, recognize it, and then use it to uplift others, it is a good thing. And it's not a bad thing. It is something that you can be grateful for to then uplift others. Hope this helps kind of explain it a little bit. I think it is something that's important to talk about, important to understand, and important to just recognize that it is something that you can use to be grateful for. It is not something that should make you upset or feel bad about. Hope this helps. Comment down below if you have anything else you'd like to contribute to the conversation. I think it's important to discuss and try to understand. Even if after watching this video you don't agree with me, it is important to just try to understand people who don't agree with you. And the other thing I just want to add, one last thing, is just because you don't think you have privilege doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're Jewish watching this. There are people around the world who don't believe anti-Semitism is a problem. Many of them have probably never met a Jew, never spoken to a Jew, and they just don't think it's a problem. Them not thinking anti-Semitism is a problem doesn't make anti-Semitism any less of a problem. So you not thinking you have a privilege doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means you might not be able to see it. So therefore, I think it's important to attempt to understand. There are many things that I don't agree with many people that I'm friends with, that I know, and rather than being like, I hate you, blah, 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 I try to understand them. Even if after understanding their point of view, I still don't agree with them, being able to understand at least is a step towards finding middle ground. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sending love to everyone. Hope you're having a good day, staying safe, and I'm excited to see the incredible dialogue in the comments.